Hello. It's currently about 11 o'clock on the 21st of February 2021. I am writing my dissertation at the moment on extraordinary elements that exist in otherwise ordinary worlds in film. And through researching that topic and engaging with that topic and thinking about that topic, I've been thinking a lot about how these moments and objects exist in our world. And I want to try and document myself capturing those and make this film to accompany the dissertation, but also to be my own exploration of the idea. And yeah, I'm going through some less than ideal circumstances at the moment, relationship wise. So that's got me thinking a lot about what really matters and what's special. And yeah, I think it's going to be helpful for me too, to explore this idea and try and capture that.
For this film, I have decided to retrace a journey that was pretty regular for me over the past few years. It's a bit of a struggle to look into the future at the moment, so perhaps it's easiest to look into the past. Before I even leave, I find myself looking out my bedroom window at BT Murrayfield Stadium, the home of Scottish rugby. For many, this may be an extraordinary sight, a pilgrimage for rugby fans across the country, but for me, it is just part of my local area. Moving away from the window, I come to my wardrobe, where a row of t-shirts is laid out. This rainbow selection represents all the festivals I've worked at during my time in Edinburgh. My plan for this journey involves retracing the steps that I took when I was working for Assembly Festival Fringe, and therefore it is this bottom drawer that interests me most. I consider putting on these clothes to fully recreate the journey, but whilst I want to document things that stick out, I don't want to stick out myself, and so I leave them sitting in the drawer. I get a weird feeling as I come out of my house. I belong here, but at the same time I don't. It was my home for 17 years, and, due to the pandemic, it is my home again. There is a lot of comfort to riding down the street on my longboard, as I did many times growing up, but I am also afraid of where I'm going to go from here. I never thought I'd be back for such an extended period. I thought I'd moved on, yet here I am. Before I even get to the bottom of my street, I come across my first extraordinary sight. The patch of grass from which that shot was taken is at first unassuming, but every December it is transformed into a Christmas tree shop, and, even though it is February, remnants remain in these branches and logs. I keep riding along until I reach this bridge. I am fortunate to capture this dog meeting an old friend. Swinging the camera around reveals my local row of shops. I remark on how big they seemed when I was younger, and how I now see them as a pretty unremarkable and average assortment of retail units, with the usual chippy, corner shop and pub. Just along from these shops, an old railway bridge crosses the road. This bridge is now part of the National Cycle Route, which incidentally connects back up to Aberdeen. I'm tempted to get on my board and see how far I can get, but instead I continue with my journey as planned. Further down the road sits a seemingly innocuous house. In fact, I spent many of my formative years here when it was a nursery. There is something offensive to me about the modern extension on the side. Perhaps it serves as a reminder of how long ago my childhood was, and how much the world has moved on since then. Across the road from my old nursery sits Donaldson's Hospital building. This used to be a school for the deaf, but it was recently converted by property developer City and Country into luxury accommodation. At this point, I recall walking along this section of road one night and seeing a shooting star. It is the only time in my life that I have ever seen one, and I remember being amazed at how connected I felt to the universe at that moment. I made a wish, but of course it didn't come true. The next landmark I come across is Haymarket train station, my nearest connection to the rest of the world, and the link to Aberdeen that I took so many times over the last few years. There is something bittersweet about going past it and wondering if I'll ever get on a train up to Aberdeen again. I remember having an argument with a previous girlfriend in the train station, and this reminds me of my current relationship situation and how it's making me feel. This clock commemorates the war dead of Hearts Football Club. Incidentally, I share a name with one of the players who died in the First World War, but I imagine we do not share much else. I take a right and head up Morrison Street. After a couple of minutes, I reach the Edinburgh International Conference Centre, which is currently being used for COVID vaccinations. I remember attending an event here when I was 16 or 17 and getting to meet some NFL players: Steve Smith Sr., Kurt Warner, and Danny Shelton. In fact, I even got the opportunity to go up on stage with them, in aid of promoting the American football team I was playing for at the time. This causes me to remark on how different the times were then, when they were able to fly over from the United States and a crowd of about 1,000 was able to gather without any social distancing or masks. As I progress towards the grass market, I catch a brief glimpse of Edinburgh Castle. Much like Murrayfield Stadium, it has lost any sense of extraordinariness to me through overexposure. Regardless of any historical significance it may hold, it is just a building to me after all these years. I don't film for a little bit, as nothing really sticks out to me. Furthermore, I see an elderly gentleman taking a photo of the shadows cast by some railings in the sun, and I consider that this is his artistic territory, and so I wait a little while until I film again. I next capture the Blood Donation Centre. I stop and wonder what might have happened to the blood I'd given over the years. I hope it went to people in need, but it may have been thrown out. I guess I will never know. I continue riding along towards the University of Edinburgh until I reach this at first ordinary looking office building. Upon closer inspection, one notices a zebra in the window. I'm sure hundreds of people every day walk, cycle and drive past without noticing this, but for the select few that do, it brings a little wonder and joy to our day. Next to these offices sits a hospital that I was born in. Much like Donaldson's from earlier, this has now been converted into apartments. I look up into the sky and see that the moon is out, despite it being the middle of the day. This is not particularly extraordinary, but I decide to capture it anyway. As I am setting up my camera, a jet flies past, and I manage to capture it just as it goes over the moon. I'm now very close to the university buildings where much of the fringe is normally held. and after the astronomical anomaly that I've just captured, I'm keen to film some skateboarding in Bristol Square. However, the University of Edinburgh has rather inconsiderately put up some kind of temporary building in the square, and so there are no skateboarders here today. I came to this square regularly last summer with my friend Rona, who I had met at the previous year's Fringe. We were both learning to skateboard, but Rona would bring a sketchbook and a camera to capture the other skaters in action. I didn't really get it at the time, because I saw skateboarding as a technical show of skill rather than anything else. But upon reflection, I think I was wrong. Seeing a board flip gracefully through the air, it is hard to argue that it is anything but an art form. This part of Edinburgh seems to have an obsession with exotic animals, as, just around the corner from the zebra, this rhino's head sticks out of a wall. I spent many days in 2018 underneath this rhino handing out leaflets before I even noticed it existed. I wonder how many other people pass without noticing. Finally, I reached George Square, where I worked in 2018 and 2019, and where this journey ends. Every August, this area is normally transformed into a hive of activity, with performers, staff and visitors mingling, another scene that is impossible to imagine with the current situation. In 2018, I worked in a glass box shown in this shot. Going down the stairs in this box takes you to a maze of classrooms, lecture theatres and cafes, which are converted into performance spaces and bars. The exclusive VIP studio bar, shown in this picture, is now little more than a hole in the ground. In 2019, I worked in this building, the Gordon Aikman Theatre. Seeing it sitting empty now, not even being used as a lecture theatre, is bizarre, especially when I'm used to it being lit up and full of audiences.
Hello again. When I reached the Gordon Aikman Theatre, that was the end of that journey. And when I started the film, I thought that I would have to take several journeys around Edinburgh to capture enough things that could be considered extraordinary, but to my surprise and to my delight, there were enough things just on that one journey through the city that I have taken regularly. There were enough extraordinary things on that journey to fill a film, which I think is pretty extraordinary in itself. And another thing I found really interesting on the journey is how much things change. Just going through that journey and seeing my old nursery, which is a house, and various buildings that are being converted and stuff that's gone up. It's not something you think about a lot, and actually going out and looking for these extraordinary things very deliberately has really made me appreciate the extraordinary as it exists in the real world. So I was happy with that journey.